Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us today. I ask that you come here so that we can give you an update. I'm going to first and foremost tell you that we have simply the best homicide team, I believe, in the entire nation. In 11 years, we only have 2 unsolved homicides. And quite frankly, if some friends of those victims would talk to us, we would have 0 unsolved homicides. But apparently their friends had rather these folks be dead than help us find out who the murderers are. But that's a side story. I knew when we sent this investigative team there that they would do everything they could and would more than likely solve this homicide because they are simply the very best. And they did on this case what they do on every other case. They investigated this homicide as if our victims, Damian Tillman, Kevin Springfield, and Brandon Rollins, were their brothers. That's the energy and enthusiasm. They work 24/7 around the clock along with all of their colleagues, and they have solved the case. We have locked up the 3 people that are responsible for the murders of these guys. Let me once again lay out the details for you. If you missed it originally, I want you to think about this. This is Polk County, Frostproof, the very south end of the county. It's an extremely rural area. The county's 2,000 square miles. Population's almost 700,000, and all of it is from mid-Polk County north. So it's sparsely populated area. It's made up of cow pastures, orange groves, beautiful lakes, and a very, very low crime rate in the Frostproof area, which is one of the best kept secrets and one of the safest places to live any place in the nation. But all of that came to a crashing halt on Lake Streety Road. When we found these people, our victims, massacred, literally massacred, we thought, my goodness, what could have happened there? Well, we know now. I'm going to introduce you to the people that were responsible for that. Then I'm going to give you a timeline. So this is going to take a couple of minutes, and you pick from it what you need. Here are, this is the trigger man. This is the guy who directly did the damage. His name's Tony Wiggins. He's known as TJ. He's 26 years of age. This is Mary Whitmore. She's 27 years of age, and she is the girlfriend of Tony Wiggins. And this is Robert Wiggins. He's 21 years of age, and he's the brother, obviously, to TJ. But let me stop for a minute and give you a little history on TJ. TJ is someone who his criminal history should shock your conscience. It does mine. TJ started to be arrested when he was 12 years old. He is currently only 26 years old. TJ has 230 felony criminal charges in his arrest history. I didn't stutter. He had 230 charges in his arrest history, 15 convictions, and 2 times to state prison at only 26. There's a picture of Tony Wiggins. Here's the real Tony Wiggins. He's a thug. He's a criminal. He's pure evil in the flesh. He's wild and he's out of control. Mary, that the call center said we had to bring in extra help. We had people call in from all over the nation about ideas and helping us investigate the crime and what they believed and psychics. But the local tips that came in that were filtered, and there were hundreds that came to us, the predominant information we got was, look at TJ Wiggins from Frostproof. It's not that they had any idea that he did it, but this guy is just mean. He's just violent. He's currently out on bond for breaking a guy's arm with a crowbar during a fight, waiting to go back to trial on other felony charges. This is a guy who they said will just walk up and punch you for no reason, or no reason to you, certainly a good reason to him. You look at the Florida statutes as it appears with criminal conduct, he's got some arrest history. Everything from burglary and theft to aggravated battery to resisting law enforcement officers to battery on law enforcement officers to battery on people that are 65 years or older, the elderly. He's just wild and hostile. And the people of Frostproof said, look at him. But let me tell you, as I introduce you to these folks and I start through the timeline, what occurred. When our crime scene folks and our detectives were working the original crime scene, what we noticed in the truck, in Damien's truck, and understand when I talk today, Damien was in the red pickup truck, and the white pickup truck had our other two victims in there, Kevin Springfield and Brandon Rollins. Kevin was driving the white pickup truck, Brandon was riding in the white pickup truck, and Damien was driving his red pickup truck. The three of them decided to go to the lake to fish. What's more wholesome than three friends, three close friends, fishing together in Frostproof on a Friday night? And that's what they were doing. But first, Damien stopped at the Dollar General store. And we figured that out because we saw a Dollar General bag in the victim, Damien's truck. And there were things that he'd purchased there. So we went to Dollar General, and I want to tell you, when you look at a professional business that was totally cooperative with us, it's Dollar General. Dollar General always works well with us because, you know, they want good customers and they don't care for criminals stealing their stuff or certainly committing murders. What we saw when we pulled the videotape was Damien standing in line to check out. The person behind him in line to check out is, newsflash, TJ. The person behind TJ is Robert. And we also determined that Mary was in the store. So let's go to a timeline. At 21:56 hours, we call that 9:56 in the evening, Damien is checking out of the store with his product. He is followed out of the store by TJ, who checks out about 15 seconds later. And he's also followed by his brother and his girlfriend. At 10:06 p.m., only 10 minutes later, Brandon, who is now in the white pickup truck, frantically calls his dad and says, "Help." And I've already talked to you how Dad ran to the scene only to find the massacre at the scene. What we know is that Damien drove directly to the lake from Dollar General to meet his friends, Kevin and Brandon. What we know is that as a result of that, the murder occurred in short order, in less than 10 minutes. So we have all three of the suspects in the store with Damien and checking out 10 minutes before the frantic call for help. So our detectives now confirm that, hey, this guy Tony or TJ that we've received tips from is standing in line with and had a conversation with Damien in the store. We don't have the conversation because there's no audio, but from body language, it was not violent or animated. It was just a normal conversation. But our detectives on Monday found our suspects, and they were living on Sarver Avenue in a family compound of camper trailers, and this is in the woods outside of Frostproof, and they were living off the grid. No running water, no electricity. They had some generators. So understand that now we're talking about Frostproof in a rural part of the county. The shooting happened in a rural part of the county, and we literally have to walk the road, and we go down a dirt path through the woods that opens up into a compound off the grid. That's how far out in the woods this is. So our detectives immediately interview Tony Wiggins and Robert and Mary Whitmore. Robert and Mary consistently lie to protect TJ. Robert lies to us, Mary lies to us, TJ lies to us. They don't tell us the truth. The only common thread during their interviews, otherwise the stories are all over the place, from different vehicles to where they went to they didn't go any place, but they agreed on one thing. They went to McDonald's and ordered 10 double cheeseburgers and 2 McChicken sandwiches. That's the only thing. So on Monday, we executed a search warrant at the compound. TJ was found to be in possession of 2 shotguns and 2 SKS 7.62 rifles. He's a convicted felon. He can't possess firearms, so he was immediately arrested. Our forensic investigations team found 1 9mm shell casing, 1 at TJ's trailer. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement said from the very beginning, I had 2 conversations with the commissioner this weekend. He's a dear friend of mine. He said, Grady, FDLE's here to do anything you need. And I told you about them chipping in $10,000 to help. And he says, our lab's at your disposal. I called him Monday afternoon. I said, we need to compare some shell casings from the scene to a shell casing at our prime suspect's house. We plan to bring it over in the morning. He said, no, bring it over tonight and let's get started. They brought in people. That's the help. That's the teamwork. What did we determine? The shell casing at the scene, the shell casing at TJ's house were all fired from a Smith & Wesson handgun. And both the shell casing at home and at the scene were fired from the same weapon, the weapon that committed the massacre, in the hands of TJ. So on Tuesday, when we got the paperwork wrapped up with all of that investigation, we went back to the scene. And we asked Robert and Mary if they would join us at the sheriff's office for a clarifying interview, and they agreed to come up to the sheriff's office to talk to us. Tony had lawyered up. Mary made some admissions. She said, I bought the ammunition. TJ was with me. Newsflash, we got video of that too. That ammunition was purchased on the 9th of July. She also gave us, once again, multiple stories about being with and confirming she was in the Dollar General that night. We've got evidence to show they were together less than 10 minutes before the murder. And then when we pressed her for the details and she realized, oh my gosh, they've got me, she lawyered up. She didn't cooperate anymore. Robert, the younger brother, we talked to him. Robert, up to this moment, or up to this event, is not a bad guy, at least in the criminal sense. One misdemeanor arrest. When Robert's in line, he hears Damien tell the clerk, we're going fishing. Damien tells the clerk, because the clerk knows everybody, it's a small town. Yeah, I'm going fishing with Kevin. So Robert and TJ are talking, and he says, yeah, Damien's going fishing with Kevin. And TJ says, what? Kevin's going to be there? So when they leave the store, TJ tells Robert, who's driving, go to the lake. Now, they had no plans to go to the lake until TJ told Robert, go to the lake. And they did. Damien now is at the lake, and he has met up with, during this time frame, Kevin and Brandon, who are in the white truck. And they have turned their trucks so that they're door to door talking to each other in the middle of the road. Robert drives and pulls up behind the white truck that's driven by Kevin with Brandon in the passenger side. TJ exited his truck. When he did, Brandon got out of his vehicle and shined a light back to see who was pulling up behind them. TJ rushed up to Brandon, pushed him against the truck, pulled a handgun out, and said, where's Kevin? Well, Kevin's sitting in the driver's seat right there. And he looks and sees Kevin. He runs around, he being TJ, runs around between the red truck and the white truck. He points the gun at Kevin, and TJ says, where's my truck? Kevin goes, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. Where's my truck? You sold the engine out of my truck. Kevin said, I don't know what you're talking about. At that moment in time, according to the information we've received, TJ hits Kevin. Damien starts to open the door of his vehicle and is screaming at TJ, put the gun away, put the gun away, put the gun away. TJ's out of control, screaming, where's my truck? And he starts shooting Kevin and Brandon inside of the white truck. It's estimated, and this is still under investigation, he shoots him 9 to 10 times between the two of them. Then he turns on Damien and begins to shoot Damien, who's got his door open but is in his truck, several times. Then he goes back to Kevin's truck, and during his excitement, now he has dropped the magazine to his firearm and he can't find it. So he opens the truck door and Kevin falls out on the ground. And that's where Kevin's found. He finds the magazine to the handgun that he drops when he goes back, points the gun back. And then he calls Robert. Robert says he's sitting in the truck. He said, I never got out of the truck. And when he pulled the gun, I started to get out of the truck. By that time, it was all over with. You can believe what of that you want to. Mary, TJ's girlfriend, she doesn't know anything. And this is one mean woman. She's not cooperating. She's not talking. She becomes incensed at the detectives when they try to confirm the spelling of her last name because it's not spelled in the traditional way you would think you would spell Whitmore. She's saying nothing, but she's there the entire time. And she's lying to protect him. TJ then tells Robert, come here. Help me put Damien in the truck. So Damien now, and we don't know the lineage, the details, because they're not given to us any better than what I'm about to tell you. They grab Damien. We don't know if he's already pulled out of the truck or if he's in the truck because there is blood evidence all over the place. But they pick him up and heave him over into the back of the pickup truck with his foot sticking up over the edge of the bed. And then they leave. They go to an undisclosed location and supposedly strip down the gun, take it apart, and throw it away. They immediately go to McDonald's in Lake Wells and order 10 double cheeseburgers and 2 McChickens. While they're standing in line, they go through the drive-thru. It's very quiet. TJ simply says, we weren't there. And that's all the conversation that they will admit to. We believe there's more than that. We found throughout the investigation that they lied for TJ, that she bought ammunition for TJ. And then later on Saturday, keep in mind this happened on Friday night, Robert takes that truck, which belongs to another relative, to a car wash because it's coated in red mud and cleans it up. The owner of the vehicle knows that they're driving the vehicle. That young lady who is a relative doesn't know anything about anything. She's just throwing a fit because you said you were going to Sebring or Avon Park in my truck and you bring it back looking like this. Robert cleans it up. We asked, did you clean the inside? Oh, no, we didn't clean the inside. Well, duh, they did. We found trace evidence of blood where TJ was sitting in the passenger side of the vehicle. That's being packaged up and taken to FDLE. So at the end of the day, We've charged T.J. Wiggins appropriately with 3 counts of first-degree murder. At this point in the investigation, we have charged Robert with 3 counts of accessory and 1 count of tampering with evidence. We've charged Mary with 3 counts of accessory to the murder and 1 count of tampering. The investigation is ongoing. The folks who lost their loved ones that night are poor people. We've had a lot of people offer to give us more money for a reward. We don't need that. But if there's an inclination to help these folks bury their loved ones, I'm certain that would be appreciated, because there's nothing worse than having to bury your child, unless it's you're having to bury your child and you don't have any money. It's important to understand, and I alluded to this the other day, I can give you more details today, that as I said originally, normally the normal murder is around drugs, alcohol, money, domestic events. No evidence of drugs in either of the victims' car. None, 0. No beer cans, no meth, nothing. In the suspect's vehicle, when we see it, there's no indication of drugs at all. The only information we have is TJ is allegedly mad over some kind of truck deal that happened some period of time ago. We've not had an opportunity, the homicide team, to dig into that civil disturbance, if you will, yet, because we're busy solving a triple homicide, but that will come together later. State Attorney's Office, which is simply the very best, worked with us hand in glove during the entire investigation, and we'll be doing the same with them as we prepare to charge, as we prepare with them to prosecute TJ for the massacre of these 3 folks. Robert and Mary's charges may be upgraded. We may add charges. That investigation's ongoing. Understand that this is Wednesday. We started this investigation Friday night when we were called, and by Tuesday afternoon, this homicide team had them in jail. We're grateful for the tips we received. We're grateful for the outpouring of support from the community. We're grateful we had people from around the country, as far away as Tennessee, that I'm aware of, want to send us money for a reward. You see, that's the United States, that's the state of Florida, and that's the community I know and love. Good people came with promises and prayers for the family from around this country. The community pulled together, and that's the United States of America that I know. Now, quite literally, other than investigative details we're working on, evidence we're preparing to take to the lab, you know what we've been told up to this point in the investigation. You can ask questions. I'll either answer them or I won't. Yes, ma'am.
Beyond this, the argument over the engine in the car, was there any other motive that you guys found?
The only conflict we see is this. Where's my truck? I heard you stole the engine or sold the engine out of my truck. Where's my truck? I heard you sold the engine out of my truck. And for that, this guy massacres Three young men, 23, 27, and 30, on their way fishing Friday night near Frostproof. It's gut-wrenching. This is evil in the flesh. This is a guy who can hurt you just because it's the right thing for him to do at that moment in time with his 3 brain cells. Yes, ma'am.
How do you know about this truck deal? Is one of these suspects cooperating, or is this something that Brandon Rollins told his father?
Well, we're not telling all of how we put this together. As you can imagine, I'm giving you the 30,000-foot view. So that you can have the complete picture of what happened. But some of the information and some of the sources that people have wanted to provide us information, you know, it's not appropriate at this stage to release. Yes, sir.
At what point in that timeline was Brandon able to call his father? Was it after they left, or?
Brandon called his father 10 minutes after they left the store. So that means they left the store. He met his buddies. They're talking. The suspects pull up. Whether Brandon, I imagine, all information I have is he made the call when the argument started, because by the time Dad got there and found his son on the ground, gasping his last breaths, and he's holding his son, or he's with his son during the very end of his life, and he's panicked. As I told you, he ran to the store, and people, good question, well, why didn't he just pick up his son's cell phone and call? Well, his son's phone had fallen down inside the truck, and in his panic and fear, he didn't see any cell phones. He just knew the three boys and his son were shot to pieces, and he ran for help, which is all he knew to do. We've tried to comfort Dad. The wounds were so severe that quite literally, if an emergency room had been across the street, they couldn't have saved his life. But you can't imagine the horror of a dad to find his son shot up. I don't mean shot, I mean shot up, as we say in Polk County vernacular. Multiple gunshots, and dying in your arms. Yes, ma'am.
You said you got several tips pointing to Tony Wiggins. Can you specify about how many tips?
I don't know how many of them Yes, ma'am.
You said you got several tips pointing to Tony Wiggins. Can you specify about how many tips?
I don't know how many of them specifically talked about TJ or Yes, ma'am.
You said you got several tips pointing to Tony Wiggins. Can you specify about
that night with Kevin, who turned out to be Kevin Springfield, and then the three suspects in the case would then follow soon thereafterwards, follow Damian Tillman to the lake that you see not too far away from the crime scene here that led to the terrible scene, the triple murders in Frostproof, everybody. Again, JB Buno here with you live at WFLA Now. I understand that we had lost our connection there briefly for a moment. We're here with you back on WFLA Now. If our connection hit occurred during the end of the press conference, what you heard, or might have missed, rather, was Sheriff Grady Judd saying that, in his opinion, that Tony TJ Wiggins needs to be executed. That somebody with such a lengthy criminal history who's out and able to commit such horrific acts, such terrible acts of violence needs to be executed, is in the words of Sheriff Grady Judd, who called him evil in the flesh. We'll get to some of the comments here momentarily, everybody, but how we believe that we know a lot of this information is actually from the brother of the primary suspect in this case, the brother being Robert, who is also charged as well. Let's go through the charges here, everybody. TJ Wiggins, 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Kevin, Brandon, and Damian, and also 1 count of tampering with evidence. Mary, the girlfriend, is charged with accessory and tampering. And then Robert, the brother, 3 counts of accessory and tampering with evidence. The break in the case was the forensic team that was able to pair a shell casing that was found in TJ's trailer to a shell casing that was found here at the scene. We noted in our stream on Monday, we talked about how the forensic team had spent a lengthy period of time there over the weekend collecting all of the evidence found at the scene of this terrible, as Grady Judd put it, massacre. And one of the pieces of evidence collected at the scene of the crime here that you're looking at here on the right side of your screen was a shell casing. A shell casing was a 9mm shell casing that came from a Smith & Wesson that was later paired to the same shell casing that was found at TJ's trailer, a trailer that was, as we understand it, a family compound of camper trailers that was off the grid, that investigators, detectives had to go deep into the woods down a dirt path to find this compound of trailers to find out where the 3, TJ, Robert, and Mary, were hanging out. And some of the details surrounding actually what happened that night are particularly, as if it wasn't disturbing enough to have 3 gruesome murders here in Frostproof, but some of the additional details that we have learned are just add to what was just a extremely disturbing set of events that occurred that Friday night, everybody, in Frostproof. Let's get to the timeline, the 2 timestamps that are of particular importance, everybody. 9:56 p.m. Friday night. Damian Tillman is checking out of the Dollar General, talking to the clerk there as Damian is checking out, saying that he is heading for a fishing get-together not too far away at Lake Streety, saying that he's going fishing with his friends Kevin and Brandon. In line, or not too far away from Damian as he's checking out at 9:56, is TJ, the primary suspect in the case, who overhears this conversation, and it then turns out that the 3 suspects in this case would follow Damian Tillman in the red pickup truck to the lake, to the scene of where the murders would take place, according to Sheriff Grady Judd. At 9:56, Damian checks out, and 10 or 15 seconds later, TJ is seen following in a separate vehicle, leaving the store and then getting in a separate vehicle in pursuit of Damien. 10:06, 10 minutes later, Brandon Rollins, the 27-year-old, is frantically calling his dad for help. So within a 10-minute period, according to Sheriff Grady Judd, 10 minutes, we go from a harmless checking out at Dollar General to a gruesome trio of murders at Lake Streety in rural Frostproof, rural Polk County. A 10-minute window between Damien checking out at the Dollar General and Brandon making that heart-wrenching phone call to his father saying, help, I'm in need of help. All of that happening within 10 minutes. So what happened in 10 minutes? We were talking about this with Daisy Ruth, everybody, if you were part of our stream on WFLA Now here on Monday. We originally believed that Damien was there and encountered the murder suspects first, without the other two on scene, based on what we were given, information we were given at the time. We now know that that is not the case. Damien, Brandon, and Kevin were in the two pickup trucks, as you see them right here, and we can look here a little bit closely at this video. You see how the two vehicles here are parked side by side, door to door. That's where this all transpired, everybody. Sheriff Grady Judd saying that the two vehicles, that the three friends in the two vehicles had pulled up side by side with one another, and we're talking door to door, perhaps about their plan to go fishing that night. Again, this is around 10 o'clock at night in Frostproof, dark. You got a picture, you're looking at the video here, it's daylight. But you got to remember now, this is rural Frostproof where it is pitch black out there. There's really not that much light other than the lights from the vehicles. They're side by side around 10 o'clock on Friday night, according to Sheriff Judd, when a third vehicle approaches. It's the three suspects, according to Judd, and TJ Wiggins gets out of the vehicle, confronts Kevin, or the vehicle that Kevin is in, confronts Brandon, wanting to know where's the truck? Where's my truck? So if for everyone was asking about what the motive could be, so many folks out there on social media saying this had to be drug related. This had to be a discrepancy over something of that was connected to drugs in some way. Sheriff Judd re-emphasized again today, no drugs, no alcohol found in the vehicles of the suspects at the time, that there was no drugs, no alcohol, nothing that would lead to that connection being in either vehicle of the suspects or of the victims. That at the heart of this, what led to TJ confronting the trio of victims in this case, particularly Kevin, was a discrepancy or a disagreement that occurred over a pickup truck, saying something along the lines of the engine was taken out of his truck or sold out of his truck. We're not exact, that Grady Judd himself self-admittedly said we're still unclear as to the history behind Kevin and TJ, but that was what led to this confrontation, this angry, really just ambush. The vehicle pulls up to the two pickup trucks you see here, the red and the white one, pulls up the third vehicle. TJ gets out, confronts the three individuals with the firearm, and begins firing shots into both vehicles. It's a short time afterwards that Brandon is somehow able to get his phone out. He's still alive at this moment, able to get his cell phone out and call his father. Let's get to here. Actually, I have them here too, actually, everybody, Jim. So here are the mugshots, everybody, the three. So TJ here in the center of your screen, Robert, his brother, on the right, and on the left side of your screen here, Mary Whitmore, the girlfriend of TJ. They then, after departing the scene, apparently they go to McDonald's. The words "we weren't there" are uttered. According to, again, this is all according to the press conference from Sheriff Grady Judd. We weren't there, as they order 10 double cheeseburgers and a couple of chicken sandwiches at McDonald's. We don't know exactly the circumstances as to what led to investigators being suspicious of the three that you see here on the right side of your screen. What led them to this compound of camper trailers out in the woods, off the grid, as Judd put it. We don't know exactly what led investigators, that thread of the story, we don't know. but it was the shell casing, the forensic evidence of the shell casing found at the scene of the murders connected to, which was apparently an exact match to the shell casing found in TJ's trailer after obtaining a search warrant to search TJ's trailer, an exact match. And again, for those of you just joining us, it was Judd there at the end of the press conference noting TJ Wiggins, his lengthy criminal history. He said 230 felony criminal charges before this. And then he said, did I stutter? 15, multiple, I think more than a dozen convictions. I was writing down notes as quickly as I could here, everybody, so you have to forgive me if the numbers are slightly off, but I believe it was 200 plus felony criminal charges, a dozen plus convictions, and terms in prison. Evil in the flesh is what Grady Judd used to describe the center mugshot here, TJ Wiggins. And then on the right, Mary Whitmore, who is charged, the girlfriend who is charged with accessory and tampering, and Robert, who's also charged with accessory to murder and tampering. On the right side of your screen, TJ Mary said to have lawyered up. Sheriff Grady Judd didn't note that Robert had lawyered up, or if he did, I missed that part, but it sounds, based on the structure of the way that Sheriff Grady Judd went about the press conference, that a predominant amount of the information that we have right now is believed to have come from Robert. Likely part of the negotiations that take place, of course, behind closed doors when suspects of terrible crimes are trying to reduce whatever sentence that they could be facing as far as prison time, or if life is on the table, whether or not parole is part of the picture. Based on what we know now, it's very, very unlikely. If everything in Sheriff Judd's press conference and everything that investigators have determined, if that all adds up, it's it's extremely unlikely that we're talking about any chance of parole, any chance of getting out from behind bars for the center mugshot here, TJ Wiggins, who is said to be chiefly responsible for the trio of murders, getting out of that truck and confronting the three friends who would lose their lives that night. But whether or not there's going to be a similar standard for punishment for the other two, the girlfriend and the brother, girlfriend Mary Whitmore and the brother Robert Wiggins here on the right side of your screen, we're way too early in the process to figure that out. Everybody, this is obviously a story that has gained national attention not just across Florida, but across the United States. Three friends going fishing. These friends right here, Brandon, Kevin, and Damien, or Damien there in the center of your screen rather. So Brandon, Damien, and Kevin. Three friends going fishing on a Friday night. Again, no drugs in the vehicle, no alcohol in the vehicle. Just three friends for a fun night of fishing out in Lake Streety, or near Lake Streety in rural Polk County in the Frostproof community. Losing their lives that night, being shot up. And now we know that the reason for why the alleged killer attacked the three friends was over a pickup truck, a vehicle. It's a story that has gripped Polk County especially. I know that we have a lot of folks, especially here from Polk County, Florida, that are tuning in, watching right now on WFLA Now. And we greet everybody who's watching in here from the Tampa Bay area. We're greeting you no matter where you're watching from. This is a story that has affected so many folks in the Tampa Bay area. For those of you unfamiliar with the lay of the land here in Central Florida, Tampa, on the Gulf Coast side of Florida, Orlando Central, I would say that the Frostproof community is kind of located in a triangle spot, really, between Tampa and Orlando, just more south, right? So not really along the I-4 corridor, more south of the I-4 corridor, southeastern Polk County, and Polk County is really right in the center of Tampa and Orlando, for those of you who are watching from elsewhere. What we want to do now is we want to take some questions or some comments here out of the Facebook Live comment section. We're still streaming for tens of thousands of people here on Facebook Live, and it's good to have you with us. It is now noon, roughly noon. Actually, the clock just turned over to noon Eastern time here for us here in the WFLA Now Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. Glad to have you with us here on WFLA Now as we have results here in this investigation, the triple murder investigation in Polk County. We want to hear from you, and we want to read through some of the comments. We want to read through some of the questions that are coming in. Maybe there's still some questions that we haven't really highlighted yet in our post press conference discussion. We want to bring you in here and bring you into the discussion. How we do this on WFLA Now is if you use the hashtag HeyJB, you see it here underneath my name on the left side of your screen in that yellow stripe, hashtag HeyJB. If you use that, that signals to us that you would like for us to read your comment aloud. Not everybody really wants to have their comment read aloud, especially when we're dealing with a story that is so horrific and so tragic. But if you have a question, or if you want your comment heard, maybe in support of the family, or in support of the tireless work by the Polk County Sheriff's Office, those investigators, the forensic teams that really just worked relentlessly to give some sense of closure, or hopefully get closer to closure for these families that are now grieving. Any comments, any questions that you want us to read here, and I'm going to start to pluck them out of the Facebook Live comment section and read them aloud. If you want us to read them aloud, use the hashtag HeyJB. If you don't want your comment spotlighted or read aloud in that way, just don't use the hashtag. I'll skip right past it. We don't want to read any comments or any names of any commenters that don't want their comment read aloud here, especially when we're dealing with such a story that's just affected Polk County and the community there so very much. So starting now, everybody, if you have a question, if you have a comment that you would like read aloud, maybe a point that we haven't really explored yet here, maybe you just want to give a major shout out to the Polk County Sheriff's Office for their tireless work, whatever it may be, use the hashtag HeyJB.
All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and end this stream. If you want to continue watching WFLA on Facebook, they are going to be live. There's 20,000 people there watching. So thanks for being here today. The bottom line here is that the 3 people that are responsible for these horrible murders are behind bars. And the GoFundMes have been shared in chat. If you do anything, you guys, if you donate to any GoFundMe, this is one that they really need it. So thanks for being here, and I will talk to you guys soon.